What's going on, guys? So we're back getting caught up with Ultimate Spider-Man as we continue our Ultimate Universe coverage. So I got the links to the rest of the universe in the description for anyone who needs to know what else has been going on. But in this series, we're now getting to the start of Harry's war against Wilson Fisk. And it has me curious to know what you guys think as things start to ramp up here, as we get into the reasons why both Peter and Harry do what they do. Because even though they have the same goal, their motives are very different. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so as soon as we come back, we pick up with Harry paying Ben a visit by way of breaking and entering, which could be a risky move depending on who you're going to see. But at this point in May, there are a few things that Harry's doing by just showing up here and coming to see Ben. Because for starters, Ben and Jonah already know that Harry's the Green Goblin, and since the Green Goblin's about to get very active, it's better that he just lets Ben know, as opposed to raising more suspicion about what Harry and Gwen are up to. And aside from this, Harry also asks Ben about Peter, and Ben tells him that Peter's upset about what happened and that Harry should probably reach out to him, which in itself lets Harry know that Ben has a way to communicate with Peter. But that's not what Harry came here for, because aside from just showing his face to Ben and making sure that everyone's okay, Harry came here to let Ben know things are about to get serious. And Ben's like, oh, you say it like things haven't already been that way. And as Harry leaves, he tells him, compared to what's coming, they haven't. And when I hear that, I'm like, man, tell that to Ben Rowley. Oh wait, you can't, because there aren't any left. And now I also want to mention here, because this is something that's going to come back a number of times throughout the series, and even more so towards the end, but every time we talk about Harry and Peter, I want you guys to keep in mind that at the core of who they are, Peter's fighting to protect the people closest to him, while Harry's fighting so he doesn't lose anyone else. So with Harry paying this visit to Ben, he's really trying to look out for him, unlike Gwen, who's using Ben and Jonah as a means to an end, knowing that they're doing the same thing that got her father killed. And in Harry's case, it's very different, because he sees how Ben and Jonah can help, but he still doesn't want them to get hurt. And now after this, when we head over to Oscorp Industries, which is being run by Gwen Stacy, and really she had been running this place even after Norman's death, when Harry was still around. So not too much has changed for her in the broader picture, but right now when she's having a meeting with Robbie Robertson, who's brought her some reports, at first Gwen's like, are you sure this is right? And Robbie tells her no one would ever confuse him for being an investigative reporter, but he knows the difference between good information and bad. And this is a sure thing. And when Gwen asks him, why should I trust you, Mr. Robertson? He tells her because we Mysterios have to stick together, don't we? Which without warning lets us know that Robbie's been one of the Mysterios this whole time. But because of how Gwen's been acting lately, and kind of doing her own thing, he tells her like, hey, we're not supposed to have secrets. So I want to ask, what exactly do you plan to do with these reports? But before she can even get a word out, Gwen's told that her 4 o'clock meeting has arrived early. So she takes it, which has Robbie feeling some kind of way. But come to find out, this 4 o'clock meeting is with Wilson Fisk, who of course has brought Mr. James Wesley with him. But as Robbie walks out, he gives Mr. Wesley this crazy look, almost like Mr. Wesley knows something, but Robbie can't prove it. Because again, we know Robbie has his suspicions about Gwen, so this look that he's giving Mr. Wesley is going to mean a lot more in a minute. But when Fisk gets here, he doesn't stay long, and the reason why is really because he's only come here for one thing. Because with him believing that Harry's gone, Fisk just wants to make sure that Gwen honors the deal he made with Harry back in issue 5 when Fisk sold Stark Stane to Harry for pennies on the dollar. Because after the death of Obadiah Stane and his belief that there were no more Starks, Fisk didn't want any issues rising from the ashes. So now that he believes Harry's gone, he wants to make sure that Gwen honors the deal. And he knows that she was running the business even when Harry was here, but he's still just stopping by to make sure the other agreements continue in perpetuity. And that's why he leaves Mr. Wesley here with Gwen to make sure she's filled in on the details. And now as soon as Fisk leaves, Mr. Wesley gets down to business alright, because surprise, surprise, Mr. Wesley is the 4th Mysterio. And in fact, he's the same Mysterio who came to visit Gwen to let her know that he'd found Harry and how him and his sidekick Peter were taken by Kraven. And the first thing he tells Gwen here is like, look, helping you out has brought me more than enough problems. Because after helping her husband so she could save him, it's now got Fisk questioning Kraven's disappearance. So he tells her quite a few tricky steps in that one. And the tune was not one I prefer. It almost makes me want to stop the music altogether. But of course he's not going to do that because Mysterios do have to stick together. And he's got a commitment to the cause. And part of that commitment includes passing the amulet to Gwen, making it her turn to be Mysterio for the next week. But just after Mr. Wesley leaves, we find out that Harry had been hiding in the office the whole time. But now that it's Gwen's turn to hold the amulet, and she's effectively Mysterio for a week, that means Harry's gotta go get his suit, which from here takes him to the new location that he has Otto working out of, but now they're working with more of a budget operation, since Harry's funding all of this with money that he has tucked away. And that's why when he gets there and Otto's like, hey man, I did some upgrades to the suit, but I'm gonna need some things. And Harry's like, are those things gonna cost money? Because the money that Harry's pulling from, it's finite. And that's why he tells Otto if he asks for anything to make sure that it's something that he actually needs. And that's where Otto tells him that he needs a particle accelerator and he 100% needs a pocket-sized nuclear reactor. And before they both head out, Harry asks Otto about the other thing he asked him to do, as far as setting up security at Peter's place, which is where Otto's heading now to finish setting up the security system. But as Otto leaves, Harry's like, hey man, don't mess with their stuff. And Otto's quiet at first, so Harry's like, bro, seriously, don't steal anything. And it makes for a funny exchange that gets even funnier down the line. But in the here and now, Otto's like, I can't believe you'd say something like that to me. And on the way out, he lets Harry know that he's upgraded the suit, so now Harry's got rockets. But with Harry getting ready to put on the suit, this is the first time that he's booted up the suit's AI in months. And a lot of things have changed since he's last worn it. And because the AI is modeled after his father, Norman, as soon as Harry puts on the helmet, it downloads his memories, and it's like, oh, you was beaten, captured, broken, and you didn't even know who your wife was on top of all that? Like, it just goes in on him. All the way through to him meeting up with Gwen as they head out to get their war started. With the AI even telling Harry that it's tired of being ashamed of him, and that now it's time for Harry to prove himself once and for all. And now for Harry and Gwen, their first attack starts at one of Mr. Negative's weapons factories, which is basically a residential building that he had taken over with his demons, where the people who could leave were allowed to go and the ones who couldn't, they're forced to stay there and work for him, in what's essentially a bomb factory. So to handle this, Gwen tells Harry to get the civilians out of there, while she handles the weapons. So she of course handles this in a way that you would expect Mysterio to, where she's creating all kinds of illusions for the demons, to the point where she's scaring them out of their minds and they're flipping out because they don't know what's real and what ain't as they go on to attack each other. And again, while this is happening, Harry's doing his part in making sure the civilians are out safe. But the whole time, the suit's AI is talking to him. His father's voice is just talking down to him like, oh, your wife's in there doing the real work. Like, it don't stop. And when they're done, Gwen asks Harry if he got everyone out. So he's like, yeah, then he asked her if she defused the bombs, only for Gwen to tell him, I never said anything about defusing them. And as soon as she says that, Mr. Negative's residential bomb factory goes boom. So of course, Harry goes off, because he's thinking like, man, somebody could have been hurt, or even worse, killed. Only for Gwen to more or less be like, well, you said you got everybody out, so I don't see what's the problem. And Harry, he checked as far as heat signatures, so the building was clear. But then she tells him, we're at war with the generational enemy, Harry. You know that. So we have to do whatever is required. I don't know why you're so surprised by this. You were saying the exact same thing a few months ago. We do what has to be done, right? And it takes a little bit for Harry to respond, but eventually he's like, sure. And I gotta say, looking back and even looking at the entirety of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, I'm noticing that Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn have a lot in common in a very strange way, and we'll definitely revisit that idea down the line. But later on, when we see Peter do his regular check-in with Ben, this time around, Ben tells him that there's someone over there who wants to talk to him. And that someone, of course, is Harry, as he lets Peter know that he needs him to come home. But on top of that, Harry also has an idea on how to work things out so Peter and his family don't have to hide anymore, which is something that MJ's definitely in favor of, but more so for the reason of this being something that's good for Peter, with Peter both getting his friend back and getting back to being Spider-Man. But before Peter and Harry get started, Peter stops for a moment and he's like, hey, where's Gwen? And Harry just kind of gives him this look before we go back to Gwen, who's currently getting chewed out by the Council of Mysterios, because she's been doing a lot on her own terms, which is not how they work, because they're all supposed to act as one. So when Quentin gets on her case about it, as far as what she's done, she claps back at him like, I'm doing what we supposed to been doing. Because to Gwen, these guys have been all talk and no action. And I mean, to be fair, the last time Quentin wanted to take action, Gwen was like, no, we'll find another way. And to be fair, in that conversation, they're talking about taking things directly to the maker. And this approach isn't flying as close to the sun as that would have been, but the problem that Quentin and the others have is that she didn't run this by them. And really much of anything else that she's done lately, from acting early to save Harry, to her killing Kraven, to her attacking Mr. Negative, she's basically thrown these guys into a war that they didn't sign up for. And she's creating multiple messes that they've got to clean up, especially in the case of James Wesley, because he's got to answer to Wilson Fisk, who's been asking about Kraven like what happened to that boy. And furthermore, in the case of Mole Man, who knows the most, out of anyone in the Kingpin circle, Kraven's body was just left for him to deal with. And Mr. Wesley gives an update on this since he has spoken to Mole Man, and he tells the others that they don't have to worry about him for now because even if he plays innocent, he still looks complicit. And again, a lot of this pressure comes down on James Wesley because he's got to be around the Kingpin the most. So when questions are being asked about Kraven's disappearance and Mysterio teaming up with the Goblin to attack Mr. Negative, James has got to be around these people daily. So he's going off on Gwen like, had you ran this by us, then we could have spun this in a more clever way and perhaps pinned the attack on someone else, but now Negative wants them dead. And that has Quentin Beck saying, well, the die is cast, which then is Gwen like, and all is as it is meant to be. Like this wouldn't have played out any different. And so that's where Quentin tells the fifth Mysterio that she's been quiet, and he asks her if she cares to weigh in. And now so far we haven't talked about who the fifth and final Mysterio is, and that's something we'll come back to, because that in itself is another mind flip. But she tells Quentin here that she does want to weigh in, as she goes on to thank Gwen for being brave while the rest of them were cowards. So Quentin's like, you agree with her? And she's like, of course. Are we here for a reason or not? Are we truly committed? Do we truly believe the words? And that's what she goes on to say to Mysterio's oath, or whatever they call it, as the others join in, which for now puts them back on the same page. And after this, when we go back to Peter and Harry, who've caught up a bit now, when Peter asks Harry what's the next move, Harry's like, hey, we got to get everybody on the same page. And Harry tells him if we're going to be at war with the Kingpin and friends, we're going to need some rules for how said war is conducted, and I won't have innocent people getting hurt. And right there, Peter's like, well, who are you? And what did you do with Harry Osborn? And it almost sounds like what Gwen was telling Harry before, but really Harry just wants to make sure that it's only the Kingpin and friends who catch the heat. But they don't go into all that here. Harry says he doesn't want innocent people hurt, and Peter's like, cool. But the next thing they're supposed to do is meet up with Gwen. So Peter asks Harry how long we got, and he's like, about an hour. And that's where Peter's like, oh, we got some time to kill. Want to beat up some bad guys? And Harry is just like, you know I do. So for the next 45 minutes, they make their rounds. They run into Shocker, as well as some other Ultimate variants who we haven't seen just yet, like Hammerhead and Vermin. And all of this takes about 45 minutes, leaving Peter and Harry with about 15 to spare. And now mind you, this whole night with Peter being back, fighting alongside of Harry, Pete's feeling really good about all this. Feeling great actually. So when they're done and they still got another 15 minutes to spare, Peter's like, you know what, I want to do one more thing real quick. And he gets moving, because Peter wants to go back home. But when he gets there, the place is a mess. Somebody done wore his drawers and threw him on the ground. There's days upon days worth of takeout everywhere. So of course Peter's puzzled. Then when Harry sees it, he's like, okay, this place doesn't look like it was searched. It was more like, and then he remembers. Then he tells Pete like, oh God, you're gonna be mad at me. Just before Maniac comes running into the room with a bat, so Peter webs him up, and of course it's Otto. And he's just like, oh, hello, you're back. And Peter's just like, yes, in my house, where you do not live. How do you even know where I live? And then he's like, are those my slippers? And Otto tells him, maybe. And really, you can run this all the way back to Ultimate Spider-Man issue 7, where Peter first met Otto. Because even back at that time, Peter was like, why do we even need this guy's help? But from the beginning, he didn't want Otto to know his identity, let alone where he lived. But as things progressed, Otto proved to be more helpful over time, and more so in Harry's case. But for Peter to already have this impression of Otto, only to later on find him living in his home, and it's like, bro, Otto is justifying every suspicion, and the situation's looking mad creepy at face value. So Harry steps in like, okay, calm down, Pete, it's my fault, totally my fault. And he tells Peter, remember how your family wasn't protected by my protocols when I disappeared, because Otto didn't know who you were. Well, with you gone, and God knows what could have happened to me, I wanted to make sure you and yours were fine on a longer timeline. So I made a call. So Peter's like, oh, okay, then that's where Otto decided to move in. And Otto's just like, well, after he installed the security measures, he figured waste not, want not, and then he asked Peter if he could let him down. And Pete tells him maybe when they get back from their meeting, which feels more like Pete saying, no, I need you to stay in that webbing and think about what you did. And when they leave, Pete tells Harry that he don't know how to feel about this. And to be fair, I'm not even mad at Harry for trying to make sure that Peter's family was safe. And I 100% put this whole awkward situation on Otto, Octavius. But at the same time, I get why Harry feels like this is all on him, because he sent Otto to do the job. So he tells Peter here that he remembers how he felt when they were trapped, and that he didn't want Peter to feel that way again. But he had no idea that Otto was living in his home, so he'll make sure to get Otto a place and make him return the slippers. But Peter's like, nah, he can keep those. And then Peter goes on to tell Harry what I think is one of the most definitive statements in the conversation of who this Peter Parker has become as Spider-Man at this point in his life. Because he tells Harry here, you made a good call too. I shouldn't be mad, I should be thanking you. It was the right decision. Because if there's one thing that I've learned, it's this. I can only do my job the way it needs to be done if I know that they're safe. Which makes sense, Peter doesn't know what he'd do if anything happened to his family. But in Harry's case, with him losing so much, and as he continues to lose more and more, what does that mean to him? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.